All right. Today I want to talk about another opening that is refuted. And this line comes from the famous King's Gambit, which begins e4, e5, f4. And it comes from the King's Gambit accepted. Knight f3, g5, this classical line where white plays h4, g4, and then knight g5. This is known as the Allgaier Gambit, which is a very dangerous gambit at one time. And of course, black um, is offered the sacrifice of a piece, not to be confused with the Kieseritsky Gambit, which is played after knight e5, which doesn't sacrifice a piece. So one of the main ideas in the Allgaier Gambit is in exchange for the sacrificed piece, white takes away black's right to castle by sacrificing on the the f7 square, drawing the king out. And with these pawns pushed forward, uh, the king is, according to white's desire anyway, falls into basically a tactical melee here. So I'll give you a quick example from this position. A game that took place in England in 1920 after knight g5. Black played d5, just trying to counterattack in the center. E takes d5, and then queen e7 for black. And we can see already that black, first of all, didn't take the piece offered by playing the move h6, and is already falling into some positional difficulties, as after king f2, black's queen and king are lined up in the most precarious manner. So h6, and now white just takes off in development. Bishop b5, which is typical of the King's Gambit. King d8. He didn't want to lose his queen after, say, c6. So he wanted to move the king, so at least he can perhaps preserve his queen. So he played queen c5 check here. And after the simple d4, queen takes b5, black probably thought he was out of the woods, but in this position, white has exactly what he wants. He has a lead in development and an exposed king. And in the 1800s, this usually meant a bad day at the office. So knight takes f7 check, king d7, and queen takes g4 check. And that's mate if you didn't notice. Here's another quick example by the same player, William Lewis, England 1920. And this time, black decides to play h6, which is the main line, or one of the main lines. There's two. And after h6, knight takes f7 force, king takes f7, and queen takes g4 check. Queen takes g4. And now after queen f6, again bringing the queen out early. Why not just a simple move like knight f6? But queen f6 was played, bishop c4, king e7, knight c3, and you can see the rapid development of the white pieces here. And black has to play very accurately. All right, even though he's technically ahead, one slip up and it could be over due to the exposed nature of his king and queen. He plays h5, which doesn't seem too good. Knight d5 check, king d8, and white played queen f3, which actually was a weak move. Just simply queen takes g8, rook g8, followed by knight takes f6 here. But anyway, he played queen f3, queen d6, d4, and actually after knight c6, bishop f4, and you only can make so many mistakes here. I mean, it's comedy of errors, but I just wanted to show you the the general desire of white in this opening, and the game ended in mate. Queen g6 there. Basically, white sacrificing the piece for open lines. So he's giving up a pawn and a piece for these open lines and piece activity. So this is what it looks like when white just absolutely gets his way in the position, and black is, as you can see, with the denuded king, practically no development and open files and diagonals everywhere, right? These are the good old days. I wish I was playing chess at this time, right? If I could go in a time machine, I'll win everything. But now we're going to look at the opening. Why do I say it's refuted? Well, it's just no decent continuations that white can use to really maintain his advantage, or a chance of winning in this particular line. So after g5, h4, g4, this is why the overwhelming response in this line is knight g5. Excuse me, knight e5. But we're looking at this. So the first main line is h6. The second one is knight to f6. First, we're going to look at h6. So after h6, the sacrifice is forced, pretty much. And knight takes f7, king takes f7. And there's two lines here. One is the more modern bishop c4, getting the piece out right away. And the other is grabbing the pawns. And queen takes g4. So first we'll look at bishop c4 check. So bishop c4 check, of course, definitely is more dynamic looking, in that white is not seeking to restore material equality, right away. He's just wants to utilize open lines to accelerate his development here. So he checks here, and black's main response is d5. If he just moves, say back to king e8, this allows white some more compensation. I have to say, like queen takes g4, and again, black is definitely in some danger in this position, if not almost lost here. Really has to play accurately for the first couple of moves here, just due to the exposed nature of his king. For instance, he can't play a move like knight f6 here, just dead lost after queen g6. So after bishop c8, the normal move, the theoretical move, is d5. Gaining time by attacking the bishop here, and also protecting this pawn from capture from the queen. And if you notice, you'll see this move in other lines in the king's gambit, exploiting the fact that this bishop is here invulnerable. So at the right time, black just simply gives back material. If he plays e takes d5, this is just good for black here. It's queen e7 is coming, and black can't get away with king f2 here because of this. Again, exploiting the vulnerability of the bishop. So he has to play a move like king f1 or queen e2, which loses immediately because he would be just sacrificing the piece for nothing. And of course, if he goes back like that again, it's f3 just wins. So white can't really afford to lose time with the move like king f1 in this position. Although it's I'm sorry, not king f1 in that position. After d5, e takes, and queen e7, white is basically just busted here. It's just too much time wasted on white's behalf. This is why bishop d5 check is played, right? Trying to keep the initiative here. All right, now, again, you have to be tactically alert, because bishop e6 is the type of move that you would like to play. Just protect your king trade off pieces. But again, you have moves like bishop takes b7. But even stronger than that for white is bishop takes e6. Why? Because you're drawing the king out even more to this square. Queen takes g4. So what black has to do here is just calmly scoot his king out of the way. King g6. Everything is protected. And on a move like h5, things still remain closed. He would just scoot back to g7. Now possible here is bishop takes b7 still. Because again, this draws the bishop away from that square. So for example, bishop takes b7, and then queen g4, and we're on a wild goose hunt, a goose chase for the king here. So you can see right here that black's king is getting chased around a little bit, and this is not what you want to be happening to give white this type of exposure. So instead of king g6 in this position, this is why king e8 is the standard move that should be played here. And again, it looks weird because black has all of his pieces in their starting position, and it's white to move. But with the position being closed, the onus is on white to try to find a way to break through. After all, he has invested a piece. And don't get me wrong, white does have compensation, but does he have 3 pawns worth of compensation? Does he have enough? And practice and theory has shown through the years that that white does not have enough compensation. Moving on, d4, just taking the center, good move for white. Probably one of the best moves, knight c3 also. But even with the best moves, at this point, with the position being closed and white not having a way to really get in, black can just start counterattacking. So moves like knight f6, for example. Again, white does not really have time to, say, move the bishop back. Right, you just drop material here. Or black could just use the time to bring out another piece and start catching up in development. Again, he can invest more time in keeping the position closed by playing moves like knight h5. Very strong moves. So this is why here, after knight f6, white just keeps going. And now you can see the true idea revealed behind d5 is that it draws the bishop to an undesirable square, and then at the right time, black is able to capture because white just doesn't have the time to retreat the bishop. Now we have a series of trades. And queen e2 is a good move to play here with the idea of getting to the queen side. Again, move like queen e6 is possible. Say bishop e5, rook h7, and you can see at this point, knight c3, that white's attack just simply runs out of steam. Okay, knight takes d7, excuse me, knight takes e5 can just be played here at this point. So let's say here, d takes, and then like rook d7, king b1, bishop g7. And again, white really doesn't have any way to infiltrate the black position. Rook takes, queen takes. Of course, bishop d7 is possible, but queen c4 is very strong here. And if rook e4, then just simply queen c6. Rook e1, for example, bishop e6. And now you gotta watch the threats again here. And then just simply king f7 maybe. If rook f1, king g8. So that's just a sample line to show you that, you know, white has a valiant attack, but it's just not enough at the end of the day. And that's just one line right there, theoretical line. And this is what happens after bishop c4, king e8. But this is really the position that you have to remember. If anything, it's bishop c4 and bringing the king back. So the principle behind it is, again, not necessarily remembering the variation, but the principle is that you have to keep the position closed. Don't give white a way to open up the position. Keep the position closed. And then you exploit the position of the bishop. That's principle 2. So you exploit the position of the bishop with d5 here. So bishop c4, d5. Of course, he has to take with the bishop, and then simply king e8. And here he has no way to really infiltrate the position. There's no real good moves that white can make to keep the position, keep the attacking mechanism going in the position. So for instance, knight c3, that's just a regular development move. There's no threats or anything. Same with d4. d4 is probably the best move here because at least he's threatening this pawn. But black is up a whole piece and doesn't mind giving back a little material. And we have already demonstrated that white can't really afford the time to retreat this knight. So either he has to play a move like bishop takes f4 here, or knight c3, which we haven't looked at. Now on knight c3, instead of capturing here and allowing this knight to come here, I mean, which wouldn't be a big deal, possibly even stronger, is just knight h5. Not with the spirit of holding on to this pawn, but really hindering white's development for as long as possible. Castles is possible here, but again, this is bad for black after f3. So for example, g takes f3, then the queen would just come crashing in. So after, again, bishop c4, d5, bishop takes, not bishop e6, but just simply king e8. White really doesn't have enough. So the other variation then is queen takes g4. This right here was rejected early on just because of the pawn grabbing nature. After all, you're trying to develop an initiative and basically have more development than your opponent in this opening, especially after you sacrifice the piece. And so by bringing the queen out right away like this, it gives black opportunities just to simply start equalizing by bringing his pieces out to attack your queen. The good side of it is at least after the queen captures these pawns on the G and F files, at least those files then subsequently become open. So on queen g4, instead of bringing the queen out like in that game, the best thing is just to start bringing the pieces out. So knight f6, okay. So now this pawn comes out, and now the star move here is bishop to d6. The reason is this move is threatened right here. If just d6, then white starts to have a good game. So bishop c4, let's say king g7, castle, and then the pressure starts building up. Knight c6, d4, and if knight takes d4, then just simply queen g3, just exploiting the waste of time from black. See, king h7, then of course queen d3, and black is in a whole world of trouble there. So d6 is out of the picture. Okay. After d6, bishop e6. Again, this is not too good, as white is able to accelerate its development. The knight, again, whatever, c6. Do rook f1 here. Or if we want to avoid the check with queen b6, we can just do rook f1 instead of castling. And this is, again, not the type of position that you want to go into. So d6 is a move that looks innocent enough. But here, with the newly opened f-file, it's very important that to refute this particular line, that bishop d6 is played. And now you can see the difference with this added piece, this development here. First of all, black is attacking the queen, so if he reacts, say, with the move like bishop takes e5, you can just take, because the queen can be exploited because there's a high value in the tables of turn here. You can see preventing e5 and gaining valuable time against the queen. Remember, that's the principle that you have to understand in that particular variation, is that white has brought the queen out early, and so you want to exploit that, and this is how we do it. So sometimes odd maneuvers require odd responses, and this is one of those cases. You always have to try to focus on the biggest weakness of a position. I think that applies to a lot of different areas, in sports in general, and um, just strategy in general. Like, you want to attack where you are strong and your opponent is weak. So you find a weakness and then you attack there. In this case, the weakness is that white's queen is just out early. Out early and available, to be attacked. So bishop d6, the queen must move. This wastes time, and this is good for black. Queen f3, knight c6, and you can already see the development lead that black has obtained. Let's say c3, right? That's a common sense looking move to try to protect white from having to deal with knight d4. But first, let's deal with this. This is a natural move because after all, you don't have the d5 pawn. But black has enough time now where he can just simply move over. And now let's say c3. Okay, you can't come here, but you just come there. Queen g3, check. Knight e g4. And again, same story. white just does not have enough compensation at this point. So the general idea here is to exploit the early movement of the white queen. This would be analogous. Instead of bishop c4 check, if white just decided to do c3 first, queen e8 with the concentration on the e pawn, it's possible, or rook e8, either one. Rook e8 seems more responsible. Got d4, really, I mean, it can be played, but, you know, again, it would be bad. So say d3, for example. Now you could just hit with knight e5. And I don't think I need to go into any more detail with that particular line. So this is why I believe this opening fell out of favor. There's just not enough compensation for the sacrifice piece on f7. So like I said, you had these two lines here after h6, which is one of the main lines. So h6 is definitely can be played as a refutation, and I'll show you knight f6 also, but h6 is, you know, you won't see this too much, but if you do, you could just play h6. And again, if the queen takes g4, just remember the queen is out early. Exploit that by playing a quick knight f6. If they play the main line, which is bishop c4, just remember to play d5, just like in the other lines of the King's Gambit. And the purpose is to lure the bishop to a bad square. Don't play bishop e6, but king e8. All right, this is the position you got to remember. Just going back to the start, and then you can just unravel your opponent's position. He just doesn't have enough compensation. But if there was a line to pick, which one is better, it's this one for white. d4, knight f6. Again, he doesn't have time to retreat the bishop, so he has to play a move like bishop takes f4, and then that's when you start trading off. Let's look at the other line. So instead of h6, I think this is a line made popular by Schlechter, the knight f6. Basically, why waste the tempo on h6, pushing the knight around? He can, he's trapped there anyway, so you might as well do the things that you want to do. So what can white do from here? Well, let's look at the obvious, bishop c4. Again, the same character, same player, except this time it's not a sacrifice anymore. He's looking to actually grab this pawn. So d5, as you see in like what I would call normal King's Gambit lines. Again, taking with the pawn is just bad. Again, there's all type of tactical situations here. So you're faced with king f1, and then h6. All white can do rather, is counter sacrifice with d6. And let's say c takes, knight takes f7, and the knight is going to be going pretty soon. So remember this theme of d5 here. Very strong move. This is why, again, after d5, bishop takes d5 is played, but then that allows, of course, knight takes d5, e takes, and then you can go play h6 if you want, but at least this time white has somewhere to go. But h6, and it's not worth sacrificing at this point. The other line with knight f6 is just e5. You know, the idea is just try to drive this guy away. But here, just like in the Scotch opening, you had this move queen e7, which exploits this pin right here. Then after queen e2, for example, then you just play knight h5. Okay, and knight h5, white gets some small counter play here. If the knight c3, things get kind of murky here at the knight c3, knight g3, knight d5. And you end up in this ending here. So you must remember that in this line, black is a little better, but white is not being forced to sacrifice a piece. So if you don't want your king wandering around and things like that, you might want to play the knight f6 line, but the game is going to be more, on the equal level. The only thing is I feel that if white is going to give you that piece in that opening, that you should take the piece. So, like I said, out of the two, knight f6 and h6, I definitely recommend you just play the strongest move and grab the piece, because it's not really that much to remember. But snatch the piece, and there's two lines. There's this dubious line of queen takes g4, and then there's bishop c4 with d5 followed by king to e8. And if you remember that much, then it's basically the game. The game is pretty much over at that part for any decent player worth his salt. So that is it for this video. Why the Allgaier Gambit is considered refuted. I hope you enjoyed that. I look for your comments down below, and please check the links below. I'll put some videos related to this opening and books. And please support my channel via donation, and hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and all that stuff, so my videos will be pushed forward in the algorithm. Thank you, and I'll see you guys soon.